I'm Gable Collings, and in this video, I'm going to be giving you an overview of what you can expect astrologically from 2026 based on the movements of the outer planets. I'm focusing on the outer planets, which are Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto, because they are the slowest moving planets. This means that they indicate what themes are going to be playing out in the collective over long-term cycles that span years and even decades. In 2025, all the outer planets except for Pluto changed signs. And now in 2026, all of those planets are going to return to the signs they were in before because of retrograde periods, and then fully settle into the new signs that they entered in 2025. This means that 2025 was the beginning of some massive global energetic shifts, which will be solidified in 2026. Let's start with Saturn. Since 2023, Saturn has been in Pisces, where it encourages you to find a healthy balance between the physical and material and the spiritual and emotional. And in 2025, Saturn moved into Aries for the first time since the 90s. And then, because Saturn went retrograde, it moved backwards into Pisces, where it is wrapping up those lessons. And on February 15th, 2026, Saturn is going to re-enter Aries, where it's going to stay until 2028. It's always significant when a planet moves from Pisces into Aries, because Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac and Aries is the first sign of the zodiac. So this transition from Pisces to Aries represents the transition from the old into the new, closing old cycles and starting afresh. And especially when it's an outer planet like Saturn that is moving from Pisces to Aries, this means that the energy of new beginnings and fresh starts is very readily available to the entire collective. The drive and motivation of Aries and the discipline and focus of Saturn make for an action-oriented combination that really promotes focused productivity. From this February until 2028, this is a great time to get things done and to focus on doing the things that are actually going to get you closer to the goals that you're trying to achieve. And on a deeper level, Aries represents your perception of yourself and your individuality. And Saturn is the planet that's always asking the hard questions. So this can bring up some important questions about who you think you are, what you believe you're capable of, and how you show up in the world. Now let's take a look at Uranus. On July 8th, 2025, Uranus entered Gemini for the first time since the 1940s. And on November 9th, because of the retrograde periods, Uranus moved back into Taurus, where it will be staying until April 26th. So for the first couple of months of 2026, Uranus will be in Taurus, wrapping up the themes that it has been highlighting in the world since 2018. These are themes of agriculture, the weather, stock markets. And since 2018, we have seen a lot of unexpected weather patterns and extreme natural disasters. There was also the economic collapse of 2020. And another thing that I just recently pieced together is that Elon Musk's biotech company, Neuralink, was founded the same year that Uranus first entered Taurus. Uranus in Taurus is associated with biotech. So that is an interesting connection to make. On April 27th, 2026, Uranus is going to move into Gemini, where it will be staying until 2032. So it's going to get nice and cozy in Gemini. And Uranus is the planet of unexpected sweeping changes. So while it's in Gemini, we can expect to see some massive changes in the world in terms of things like trade, transportation, social media, virtual reality. And I think we're already seeing some of this in how quickly AI has taken off in the past year alone. The first AI actress was signed in 2025, and I think we might see more things like this happening as Uranus settles into Gemini. Some other predictions I have for Uranus and Gemini are continued threats to freedom of speech, like we've seen with Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel, both of which happened while Uranus was in Gemini. We might also see the creation of smart cities and changes to international trade due to tariffs. But that being said, I think that we don't fully understand what Uranus and Gemini is here to bring into our world. I don't think we fully understand the sudden sweeping changes that it might bring, because it hasn't even fully settled into Gemini yet. And Uranus is the planet of the unexpected, and Gemini is probably the most unpredictable sign. So I think this one is going to be especially hard to predict. We'll just see how this unfolds over the next few years. And one more note that I want to make about Uranus and Gemini is that historically, it has always coincided with a war in the United States of America. And if you want to learn more about that, I have a full video up on my channel right now where I go into depth about Uranus and Gemini and what it has coincided with historically, and more of my predictions about what might happen with Uranus and Gemini this time around. So if you're interested in learning more about the wars in America and how they've lined up with Uranus and Gemini and what that means for the next few years for this country, you can check out that video. I'm going to link it up here, or maybe up here. I don't remember how it's going to show up, but it'll be here somewhere. Definitely check that video out. Now let's move on to Neptune. Since 2011, Neptune has been moving through Pisces, where it highlights compassion, spirituality, and artistic creativity, but also escapism and deception. And interestingly enough, both Neptune and Pisces also have connections to viral diseases and vaccinations, which have definitely been more in the public eye because of COVID. Neptune entered Aries for the first time in our lifetimes in 2025. But when Neptune went retrograde, it re-entered Pisces on October 22nd, 2025, and it's going to be staying there until January 26th, 2026. And then on January 27th, it will officially settle into Aries, where it will be staying until 2038. Neptune moves really slowly. So I already mentioned the significance of an outer planet moving from Pisces into Aries. This represents a whole new era for our world. This represents a massive fresh start and so many new beginnings, and it's even more major than Saturn because Neptune moves so much more slowly. I've done the research, and almost every time that Neptune has been in Aries, there has been some sort of major rebellion or revolution in at least one country or one area of the world. And that rebellion or revolution usually has something to do with breaking away from religion. One really good example of this is the Christian Crusades that happened during the 13th century. Neptune was in Aries then. The last time that Neptune was in Aries was from 1861 to 1874. Which includes the majority of the American Civil War, an example of a rebellion/revolution that was happening in America. But this was also the time that Charles Darwin published The Origin of Species. And his theory of revolution was totally rocking the boat because it was inviting people to consider that the religious beliefs about how humans came to be was not true. And perhaps there was a scientific reason for humans instead. And that was totally revolutionary and upset a lot of people. And that is a really good example of what Neptune and Aries can do. It often brings new groundbreaking ideas into the collective consciousness that divide the people between the people who want to cling to the old ways of thinking and the people who are open-minded enough to consider this new way of thinking. And last but not least, we have Pluto. Pluto has been in Aquarius since November 19th, 2024. So we have a pretty good idea of what that might look like for the collective already, because since November 2024, it has been fully settled in Aquarius. And it will be fully settled in that sign until 2043. Aquarius is associated with humanitarian values, equal rights, and social justice. And Pluto is the planet that represents power, usually the people who are in power, like government officials. So what this might look like is over the next several years, several decades actually, we might see the power shift from major corporations and government leaders more towards individuals, power to the people, especially marginalized groups. It's interesting to note that very recently, Zohran Mamdani became the first Muslim mayor of New York City, and we might start seeing more people who are minorities or part of a marginalized group coming into power. That might be one way that Pluto in Aquarius will play out. We will see. Aquarius is also often associated with technological developments, which is further supported by Uranus in Gemini. Those both support scientific discoveries, especially in terms of things like social media, even space travel, or travel in general. But there is a dark side to Pluto in Aquarius that is not talked about nearly enough. A lot of astrologers say that Pluto in Aquarius could bring more freedom of speech, but it's more likely that the opposite will happen, because Aquarius is a fixed air sign. Air represents communication, expression, and the symbolism of the fixed modality is about restriction and limits. That combination of fixed air actually means limited or restricted communication or expression. More people who are members of marginalized groups, people who have been repressed, might be able to get their message out there more easily, but we might also see more repression and restriction on mainstream people, mainstream sources of information, people who are not repressed. So there might be more censorship on these more traditional kinds of people and kinds of groups, kinds of corporations even. And I see this already happening in that both Stephen Colbert and Jimmy Kimmel were threatened with censorship and a threat to their freedom of speech in 2025. That might not be the end of that happening. I mean, of course we hope it is, but because Pluto is going to be in Aquarius for more than a decade, it might not be the end of it. Whatever happens with Pluto in Aquarius, I think the power dynamics that make up our world are going to shift in really big ways from now until 2043, and we will see how that unfolds. Right now, everything is still really unsettled. So much is changing fundamentally on a global scale. Everything that started to shift in 2025 and that is still unsettled is going to get a little bit more clear in 2026, but it's still just the beginning. But I do feel that 2026 is going to bring in some really new things into the world. By 2027, our world is going to look nothing like it did in 2024. And in July and September of this year, there will be a Neptune-Pluto sextile, which further encourages major shifts in the collective consciousness and our global evolution. So this is really going to be a major year for the collective energies, and that's going to feel intense on an individual level as well. We will feel it every time we hear a new news story. Every time there's another major world event, we're going to feel it. And I think a lot of us are already feeling it, even not looking at the news, even not knowing what's going on in the world. We can feel the shifts happening within us. I have heard this from so many people, are feeling differently within themselves now than they did at the end of 2024. And I think that's going to continue and deepen. In this video, you've learned what the movements of the outer planets might mean for the collective and the world around you in 2026. But if you want to learn even more about what 2026 has in store, including the upcoming Venus retrograde period and Jupiter's shift into Leo, then my 2026 planetary guidebook is for you. This is a 75-page ebook that guides you through every major astrological event of 2026, including every Mercury retrograde period and every time that Mars changes signs. Just by giving it one quick read all the way through, you're going to be so much more prepared for the year ahead, and you're going to be able to plan your life in alignment with the global astrological energies so that things flow a little bit more easily for you. Another special thing about this ebook is that at the very beginning, you'll find this QR code, which gives you the option to sign up for email reminders throughout the year. So you won't just buy this book, read it a couple of times in January, and then forget that you have it. You are going to receive emails throughout the year every time an astrological event is happening that's listed in the book, so that you're reminded to check your ebook and learn about what's happening in the world so that you can plan in alignment with those global energies. In the 2026 Planetary Guidebook, I go into depth about astrological events that I will not be sharing about anywhere else for months. These are things like the Neptune-Pluto sextile I mentioned and Jupiter moving into Leo. These are things that I will not be sharing anywhere else. But if you want to plan ahead, if you want to know months in advance that these are happening so that you can be prepared, you need the 2026 Planetary Guidebook. It is such a powerful resource to have, and I really encourage you to get your copy, which you can do by checking out the description below. There's a link there to get instant access to your ebook copy for only $20 right now. This year, I am not offering my planetary guidebook in a physical format, so if an ebook is really not your jam, I totally understand. Same here. Get your copy anyways, and you can just print out the pages and make your own physical copy. If you learned something new in this video, be sure to give the video a like and subscribe to my channel if you want to see more astrology videos like this. I also encourage you to go to my channel and check out the posts section, which is where I share written astrological updates at least once a week. So that's a great place to also stay up to date with the astrological energies. I'm Gable Collings, and I hope that this video has helped you feel more prepared for what's to come in 2026, and hopefully also more empowered to have a fabulous, magical, wonderful year no matter what is happening in the world around you.